New Hope TV, your encounter with God.
It is a great joy for me to take these sessions on the Hebrew language. I got excited about the Hebrew language about 4 years ago when a friend of mine actually introduced me to a book, and he said there was a book exhibition which I attended, and I asked this person, see, there are so many books here. Tell me, is there one particular book that I must buy? So there were several books. I went to that conference to study about forgiveness and health. There are many books about forgiveness and health out there. But she said, Pastor, if you don't buy any book, buy this particular book. And she pointed out to one book and said, you must buy that book. I took that book, and it had nothing to do with the conference that I was attending on forgiveness, health, and immune system. And when I looked at the book, it had everything to do with the Hebrew language. And I'm going like, what? She said, you buy it. So I came home and I bought it, and I sometimes obey people, so I bought that book. And I came home and I saw the book. It was fascinating. This book, which I have in my hand now, in his own words, this author had one chapter for each alphabet in the Hebrew language. That blew my mind. Just imagine writing one chapter on A or B or C. So then I said, there must be something about this. Then understanding is the language that God chose to communicate. It's very interesting that in the book of Acts, Paul is met by the Lord Jesus Christ on the road to Damascus. Acts chapter 26, I'm reading verse 14. And I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew dialect. In other words, it says, in the Hebrew language. Now, isn't it interesting that God chose to speak to Paul in the Hebrew language? Now, we all know that the Old Testament was written in the Hebrew language. The New Testament was primarily written in Greek, but there are some few scholars who would believe that originally it was written in Hebrew and then translated into Greek. Anyway, I'm not getting there, but it just says this: the fact that God chose the Hebrew language to write the entire Old Testament is fascinating. Then there is a verse that I like to read, and this is in Proverbs, and it says a very beautiful thing. This is Proverbs 25, verse 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of a king is to search out a matter. Now, there are many things that are hidden in the Old Testament, which sometimes we may, while reading it in English Bible, may really miss out the depth of the Hebrew inside of that. Because God chose, He could have chosen any language, but He chose the Hebrew language. Now, this talk, which I am going to give, is entitled, The Appreciation and Adoration of God Through a Devotional Understanding of the Hebrew Language. My intent is not to glorify a language, but to recognize the richness of the language so that you may see and appreciate the God who gave this language, the God who chose to communicate to us through that language. That is why the end result of all understanding must lead us into worship and adoration of God. That is my first thing that I want to make it very clear. I am not a Hebrew scholar, but I have been fascinated by the language. I have a deep passion for the language, and therefore I would like to share what I'm still learning. And this is very encouraging to me, it's very refreshing to me. It once again affirms to me that this God that we worship is simply awesome, amazing, and much smarter than all of us put together. What we're going to study is called the ancient Hebrew. I'm not going into much modern Hebrew. We're talking about the Hebrew that was the way it was written in the ancient times, during the time of Moses and David and all of that, before the Babylonian exile. What we are studying is Paleo-Hebrew or the ancient Hebrew. Now, Paleo-Hebrew, the word paleo in Hebrew language literally means wonderful. It means astonish. Wow! Every letter in the Hebrew alphabet, it's a wonder. It's astonishing. It is a wow! Every letter. It's like tallying the accounts. It has an order. There's some system. Everything is put together very meaningfully and thoughtfully. It's all arranged like in a library. Everything is systematically put together. So any word in Hebrew, when you see the letters of the word, if you know the meanings of each letter, then you can tell the meaning of the word. So, in Hebrew, every letter has a sound. Every letter has a literal meaning. Every letter has a symbol. Every letter has a root meaning. And every letter has a numerical value. So let me try to say that again to you. In Hebrew, unlike any language in the whole world, I don't think there's any one particular language so beautiful as the Hebrew language. Every letter has a sound, has a numerical value, has a symbol, has a concrete object. Every letter has a concrete object. Every letter has a symbolic meaning. It has a root meaning. And also every time an alphabet, the word begins in the Torah, where that alphabet is used as the beginning of the word, that has a significance too. So, you can take a Hebrew word, and if you know the depth of every letter that spells that word, we can actually tell the meaning of the word. So, the Hebrew alphabets, as you see in your chart, you will see this, and it has 22 alphabets, and every alphabet, as I said, has a numerical value. It goes like Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Hud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Stomach, Ayin, Pe, Zadik, Kaf, Rash, Shin, and Taf. Now, this is the 22 alphabets of the Hebrew alphabets. Aleph, Bet is very interesting. That's how we get the word alphabet, from Aleph and Bet. So, we will start trying to understand the richness of the Hebrew language, and the most important thing is this: as we try to study the Hebrew language and understand the language, to see the awesome God who put this together. No human being could have put the Hebrew language together. Like as an example, I'm going to take one letter, and that's the letter Aleph. Aleph is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. You can see that in your chart. The numerical value of Aleph is 1. The symbolic picture of Aleph is a head of an ox, which means strength, the first, the leader. But interestingly, Aleph, if you look at very closely, it has 3 characters. It has 2 Hud and a Vav. Now, I told you the numerical value of Aleph is 1, but every Hebrew alphabet, unlike any other alphabets, every alphabet comes from another alphabet. So, Aleph comes from 2 letters, 2 hoods and a Va. Now, I told you every alphabet has a numerical value. The numerical value of hood is 20. There are 2 hoods and a Va, and the value of Va is 6. So, the total value is 26. Just keep that. That is, Aleph is the first, the symbolic meaning, the leader, the one who is strong. And for us as Christians, we know the one who is strong, who is a leader, is God. So, the total value of Aleph is 26 when you take the letter value of Aleph. Now, I am going to give you another value of 26, which is, all of you know the name Yahweh. Yahweh is God's name, Yahweh. In Hebrew, this is how you will write it. Hod, He, Va, He. Now, if you have your chart with you, you can see this. These are alphabets in the Hebrew language. Now, they have a numerical value. The numerical value of Hod is 10, Va is 5, He is 5, Va is 6, He again is 5. The total value is 26. Now, we told you that Aleph also has 26. And I told you it's supreme, it's the first, it's the leader. So, you see how Aleph represents God, because the numerical value of Aleph and the numerical value of Yahweh is 26. Now, Aleph, the Jew would not even pronounce it because it is so sacred for him. It's God. So, Aleph means God or supreme. The symbolic meaning, the literal meaning is a strong, the first. Now, in your chart, Bet is a symbol of a house or a tent. Now, see how beautiful Hebrew language is. Aleph is a strong or the first. Bet is a house or a tent. Now, when you put Aleph and Bet together, you get Aleph, Bet, Abba. That's the word for father. Who is the first of the house? Who is the head of the house? The father. You see how beautiful every word is put together. The leader of the house is a father. And if our wives permit it, we can say that loudly. Is it not? So, now in English we spell Aleph this way. But if I have to write it in Hebrew, I write it this way. Aleph, Lamed, Pe. I've just written the same Aleph in the Hebrew language. It has 3 letters, Aleph, Lamed, Pe. Now, numerically, Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Pe is 80. So, when you add 80 plus 30 plus 1, we get 111. Isn't it beautiful that the word Aleph, which represents God, supreme, has Trinity in it. These are things that gets me excited about and it's so sad that our Jewish brothers do not see this. That in the very letter, first letter in Aleph, we have God who is supreme. We also have Trinity, 1, 1, 1. Now, I was listening to a rabbi teach this, and he was also saying a very interesting thing. He was saying that when you in English, for example, if you turn certain letters, alphabets, you don't get certain words. Of course, in some words you probably will get. But in Hebrew, it seems to be a regular pattern. You can change the orders of the alphabets or the letters in the word, and you'll get a different word altogether, and it will have meaning. This is how you write Aleph. Aleph, Lamed, Pei. I'm just changing the order. Pei, Lamed, Aleph. And when you do that, you get another word in Hebrew, which is wonder. Can we understand everything about God in our life? We cannot. There will always be an element of wonder about God. That's the word for wonder in Hebrew. This is another very interesting thing. This is the word for human being. The word human being, Aleph, Dalet, Mem. Now, as I told you, if you just take this letter Aleph, is always something supreme. Adam, the word Adam, comes from mud, Adam. So, human beings are from dust or mud, but also we have something supreme, Aleph. We have the very Shekinah glory of God in us because we are created in the image of God, but we are made out of dust, Adam. When you split these two letters, when you take this out, we get the word Dalet and Mem, which is the word for blood in Hebrew. So, this is human being. As I told you, this is divine. This is the earthly part in us. The blood is the earthly part in us. But we also have the very Spirit of God, and we are made in the image of God. What is very, very interesting is this. Dalet is the word for blood in Hebrew. Dalet, Mem. When you put Dalet and Mem together, you get the word blood. Dalet is 4. If you see in the chart, Mem is 40. 44 is a value of. Now, it's very interesting. It's 44, Aleph is 1, 5. Just keep that in mind. Now, the word, where do we get our blood from? We get our blood from mother and father. Mother is Aleph and Mem. Aleph is 1, Mem is 40, 41. You can see that in your chart, okay? Father is Aleph and Bet. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, is 3. So, let's add up. Mother is 41, daddy is 3. So, what do you get? 44. What is the value of numerical value of blood? 44. And you see how interesting it is. So, that's the word for. We'll take one more word. Now, all of you know Yahweh, which is the name for God, and the Jewish people don't mention that by name because it's so sacred. In Hebrew, this is how you'll write Yahweh. Now, another thing I should tell about the Hebrew language, Hebrew language did it from left to right. Okay? So, unlike English, Hud, He, Va, He. Yahweh. Hud, He, Va, He. That's the name for Yahweh. It's very interesting, when God talks to Moses, he says, whom shall I say you are? He said, I am who I am. Now, all the three tenses, past, present, and future, come from Yahweh. This is very, very interesting. The word for past tense or past is hey, hod, hey. God's name. The three alphabets in God's name. Present is hey, va, hey. Again derived from God's name. What is very interesting is the future. Hud hey, hey. So in other words, there is a short form of God twice in your future. In my future and in your future, God is there twice. That is why you don't have to worry about anything. Because God is there in tomorrow. God is already there the next year. God is already there, twice present, telling us, affirming to us, He will never leave us nor forsake us. So, God is there in the past. Whatever happened in the past, God can make something beautiful out of that. God is here in the midst of us, in the present. The great Emmanuel is here. And that too has come from Yahweh. And in the future, God is there twice. So you don't have to do any guessing about the future. Because God says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. God bless you.